Right, time for another social isolation chat. Easy for me to say, and that is this time around with multiple Group 1 winning flat trainer, an all-round very nice chap, which counts for a bit in my book. That's Karl Burke. How are you, Karl? How's things?
Good, Tom. Thank you very much.
It's a funny old time, which is probably the least dramatic description of it all. But the purpose of all this really is just to find out what life is like for a flat trainer at the moment, someone in your position getting all the horses ready. And I suppose we don't know exactly when you're getting them ready for. So what's it like at the moment, Karl, up at Spigot Lodge?
I suppose when racing was first stopped, it felt very, very frustrating. You know, we've got a big team of horses here, and personally, I think we've probably across the board, we've probably got our strongest team ever, and including a lot of unraced 3-year-olds and a lot of very nice, well handicapped 3-year-olds, we think, and very frustrating that we can't go with them. We had a lot ready to go, but look, I'm sure most of the other trainers in the country will be thinking the same thing. 2-year-olds I wasn't as worried about because we don't have loads and loads of early 2-year-olds. You know, we had 3 or 4 ready to go probably, or would have been ready to go early. But like most years, mine come sort of better through sort of the summer months anyway. So hopefully they won't be too inconvenienced. But from a purely selfish, personal point of view, it was very frustrating it is very frustrating not to be racing with a large team of 3-year-old and older horses. Yeah,
I mean, the caveat, of course, to everything we're saying is everything is being implemented for the right reasons. And there's people out there far worse off than you and I currently talking to each other, of course. But I suppose there must be huge frustrations for you and the team with horses that you had ready to go. I mean, how this might seem like the most stupid of all questions, but day to day in what you and the team are doing there, how different is everything in the yards to this time 12 months ago, say?
I would actually say the routine is very, very similar. With obviously taking into consideration all the isolating factors and the hand cleaning and the keeping apart, keeping the staff apart as much as possible. But the actual routine for the horses is very similar and probably more regimented than usual because you've got the same number of staff in. You haven't got people disappearing racing, but we're not doing as much fast work with the horses, or we haven't been up until now, and we're just starting to sort of step that up again now, hoping that there'll be some racing in May.
And is that because of the jockeys you'd normally have in to do said bits of fast work, or is that because you want the horses ticking over, but you don't necessarily want them ready to race at the moment?
Yeah, well, I can't even remember the date now when racing was first stopped here. Probably, what was it, a month ago, 3 weeks ago? So it was pretty obvious. Once we knew that Doncaster wasn't going to happen, and racing was coming to a halt, we'd had a good sort of winter with the ones we ran on the all-weather, so they were all fit and well. The team were very healthy the horse equine team were very healthy. So we were just winding up a lot of horses to run, and we had a lot of older horses. We probably had 20, 30 horses that would have been ready to run in the first 2 or 3 weeks of this month. So we backed off them, basically. We just kept cantering them, but just no fast work. And now hoping that May the 1st happens, which is probably unlikely, and probably being very optimistic to think that will happen. But I'd like to think sometime through May we'll be getting back in some sort of fashion.
I mean, if it doesn't happen, as I say, we're all sort of half expecting that it won't. You and I are having this chat.
Tom, it's wine o'clock time.
I mean, quite right. I wish I could join you. That's the first one. That's the first one. We're doing this about 6:30, just to say that. I mean,
6 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. There are a few good little memes and videos going around of people joking about how early they've started drinking in this social isolation. But there you go. Thing is, you're an early start, so you're all right now. You've been up for over 12 hours, haven't you?
And the rest, yeah, we're up pretty early at the moment. But 5 o'clock the alarm goes off, and we're in a good routine. I think actually I was probably in a worse place myself personally this time last year because the horses weren't running particularly well. Because everybody is off, I've actually taken this non-racing period quite well. So it's not as frustrating because everybody is in the same boat, and we've all got to put up with it. And as you said earlier, there's probably more important things going on in the world than horse racing. But I'm sure I'm not the only one that does think selfishly every now and then, and wish we were racing and wish we were financially sort of moving forward rather than in a stagnant period that we are.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, without doubt. Well, just with owners, and I suppose it's each to their own, or every trainer has a different relationship with lots of different owners. But did you approach it when it was announced? Did you sort of contact owners to leave it up to them what to do with their horses, or did you say we're working towards something and we're still going all guns ahead with your horses? Does it depend when their horses would have come out in a normal season?
Yeah, tried to touch base with quite a few of the owners, and I've sort of managed to get round most. So I spent a weekend, funny enough, just before the lockdown. Spent a weekend in Dubai, seeing a few owners out there, and we were still making plans at that time for early season. But they've all been in touch since. And to be fair, that most people are more concerned how we are personally as a family and as the staff, making sure that they're okay rather than worrying about racing and the horses. One or two now are starting to sort of think, well, if there's no racing in May, what do we do? And basically I've just said, look, let's keep going forward. This next couple of weeks, put ourselves in a good position if there is racing in May, and if there isn't racing in May, we'll review it after that. There's been a couple of horses we've sort of backed off because they're not either going to be early 2-year-olds or they're back end 2-year-olds, or horses with some of the all-weather horses now we've just given a little break to, and there's no point keep hammering away at them. But as I said, the majority of the team are sort of I think going to be very, very useful turf horses, so I want to keep them going. And I think it's the other thing as well, Tom, is because we backed off a little bit there 2-3 weeks ago, a lot of the 2-year-olds we haven't got much of a pecking order, and I think that's going to be important, not just for us, for most trainers, to have got a fair few 2-year-olds to have some sort of pecking order when it does resume, because there's no point sending a horse that turns out to be moderate to one of the better races. Although I understand there's probably going to be a regional racing to start with. So we want to drive on a little bit with some of the early and mid-season 2-year-olds just to get that pecking order and have an idea of where we are with a lot of the 2-year-olds sooner rather than later.
Before I ask my next question, I'm going to ask about how your arm is, because I appreciate you're holding a phone at distance. It's like me when I ask long questions holding a microphone out. Is it doing all right? It's okay.
This arm's fine.
That's the most important one.
Yeah, this one's fine. The other one's resting. Don't worry.
Oh, good man. Just to pick up on what you said, is there a chance you think? Look, again, we're speculating as to what sort of form racing is going to take when it does come back. But with those juvenile contests, perhaps, do you think they could be hotter by in comparison to what they would have been in previous years, just because of the amount of youngsters that trainers will be looking to get out, or not necessarily? Is that a concern of yours?
Well, I say they'll be. I don't know whether they're going to be hotter, because horses can either run or they can't, whatever stage you run them at. But there'll be more 2-year-olds ready for those first few 2-year-old races, because of the extra month or 6 weeks or 2 months, whatever it turns out to be. So trainers will have had those extra few months. Horses will have matured that little bit. So rather than horses going through the system early, those first 10, 12, 20 2-year-old races, a lot of bubbles will have been burst then. Everybody will be diving in to run. So the fields are going to be maximum. There's going to be no hiding place. And you'll want your 2-year-old up and ready fairly sharpish, I would have thought. And the other thing as well, we've got to get horses out and running, and more so with the 3-year-olds and unraced 3-year-olds and horses that aren't handicapped, because they've got to get through that system, for later on in the year. So everybody is going to be wanting to run horses. It'll be interesting to see how they, what races they produce, what races they put on, and in the early first 2 or 3 weeks when we're back, because there's going to have to be a lot of maidens, I would have thought, just to get horses through the system and get them handicapped.
Feels only right to do a little horse update with you, and in particular some of the stars you had last year, mainly living in the past. Your Lau, the winner, who I saw you out there at the Breeders' Cup with her. But how's she come back from that? And is she still with you raring to go this year?
Yeah, she came back into the yard in the end of January. She had she went back to the owner's stud, Branton Court, down near Harrogate, which is a beautiful stud there. And she spent an extra month. Lady in France came back from the same stud at the beginning of January because she went out to America. She's quite a light frame filly, and she didn't really put on a lot of weight through the winter. Whether that was because of her exertions in America, I don't know, but I think she's that type of filly. The last 2 or 3 weeks now, she's really started to do well. Very happy with her. We would have been going to Chelmsford, I think, at the end of April if racing had been on for that new fillies listed race. So where we go with her, I haven't a clue at this stage, but she is starting to really do well now, and she's put a nice bit of weight on. I would imagine she's going to stick to sprinting. She might stay 7. I don't think she'll stay a mile. But I'd imagine the Commonwealth, if that happens, again, massive question marks, but that type of race, you know.
Yeah, if it happens, or perhaps when it happens, who knows how the season progresses. See, I feel if I was switched on, I'd have done some sort of competition to see who the horse in the background is behind you, but I've half been sat here trying to work it out. I know your house pretty well, Karl.
Yeah, not as well as Shinner's.
Who is it?
In the blue?
Yeah.
That's Libertarian when he ran in the Irish Derby for Godolphin.
See, he's one of my he genuinely one of my favourite horses after that Dante, and then I supported him each way in the Derby, Karl. So there you are.
Really well done. No, he was a fantastic horse. I mean, it's unbelievable. It just shows you how short a flat horse's career is. I mean, he had his first serious gallop away from home on I think it was about the 5th of March. He had his first race on the 8th of April, and he'd gone and disappeared and retired by sort of midsummer of that same year. You know that, but he gave, for those 3 or 4 races, he gave us some thrill.
Ah, lovely. A bit of after timing from me on this as well. So there you go. I should get a bit of stick. Good man, Karl. Look, I appreciate that. I suppose it's funny, isn't it? Because we've got a bit of nice weather as well now. The ground would be about right, wouldn't it, for lots of trainers? But there you go. We can't race them.
Yeah, I was talking with Joe O'Gorman, my assistant, on Saturday, and we were 2 weeks ago. We were thinking, well, the Lincoln will be bound to be on soft ground. It's going to suit the soft ground horses. Probably would have been on nearly good ground, I would have thought, by last Saturday. It's been lovely ground around at the moment. Yeah.
Well, look, hopefully it's before too long, as we say, for all the right reasons. And it's good to have that little update from you. Karl Burke, thanks very much. Hope the family stay well, and let's catch up again, hopefully on a race course before too long.
Anytime, Tom. Thank you. Good luck.
Cheers, Karl. Thanks.